Today, Rinpoche gave extended details on the wholehearted resolve and showed how love and compassion actually have aspects of it.
Adisha Junla Tene, Dajenya Kasa, Jundi Manga do you going to send you to what the Katu in Batala, the Jelang about Jibat, the Jet Jang in Ye, the Jelang about Jebas Adela, he is with the Tibetan Buddhism Tower, and to the Basun to Kish or Marba. That is Jet Jang the La Senova Dubatan, Yoga Nabachan Duvani Marba. Nabajan Rubani. That Sanyaba Duba, that Anu Marbe, Danye Bamas Mudele, Sanyabu Gures, Yoga Nabajan Duba Zadele, Majet Tenzo. Majet Tenzo. What the son de Young Shabatan, Hinge the Lasson of Jim Beret, and then Hinge the Lasson, Sanjit on Debin Berdebo. What the lady Mara? Take on Taranga what the Shambat Shin, Terim picking out to Lasson Kadun Mara.
Okay.
Lasson de la Richabo de Pejana, Sonja Jume Gure, Wool Tin Tomatere, Wolea, Tin Tomatere, Sombal Hassan Gumbanes,
Sumja Juchi.
Sonja Guru.
Go. Awesome.
Hassan.
Okay.
Very Sonja Guru, Inchikazi in Hakumare.
Go.
Sonja Wool and Dua. Sombal Hassan Gumbanes.
Okay. Chishin of the door. Let's go. Ale hula. Okay, so once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and then specifically the section on training the mind in the stage of the path for beings of great capacity. When we look at this section and divide it in the beginning, we find that in order to develop the spirit of awakening, or the mind that aspires to enlightenment, bodhicitta, there are two causal lineages for the arisal of that realization. So the first causal lineage for the arisal of that realization is called the training the mind in the seven cause and effect personal instruction, and the lineage descended from the great elder Lord Atisha. And then the second category is the training based on the teachings of the conqueror's child, Shanti Deva. So these are the two categories of the major heading, the stages of training in the spirit of enlightenment, or the spirit of enlightenment again is bodhicitta. So when we now we're currently dealing with the training based on the 7-point cause and effect passed down from Lord Atisha. And when we look at the different categories, we have first a category if we look at the two major categories, you have developing certainty about the order of the stages, and then you have the actual gradual training. Looking at that first category, developing certainty about the order of the stages, we have the two categories, first showing that the root of the Mahayana path is great compassion, and then the second category showing that how the 6 other personal instructions are either causes for great compassion or results of great compassion. So these are the two categories that fall under that first heading, developing certainty about the order of the stages. And in the section where we see that compassion is the root of the Mahayana, we say that because compassion, great compassion, is important in the beginning, middle, and end. So it shows in this chapter and section the importance of this spirit of awakening during those 3 times. So then we find the 6 personal instructions are either causes or results of the great compassion. So the first four, when we look at the 7-point cause and effect, so the first 4 points, if you will, are recognizing all sentient beings are our mothers, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and then love through the force of attraction, through the force of affection. Again, that attraction, like a magnet is attracted to magnet, so that's the way that that word is being used. Love through the force of attraction. So these 4 points are all causes of great compassion. So that's what's meant, either causes for or effects of. The final 2 points, which are the extraordinary attitude and the spirit of awakening, or bodhicitta, are results of great compassion. So that's explained in that section. So then the next points that are made once we go through all of that fall into that next major heading, the gradual training. And we've gone through many of the points of the gradual training, recognizing sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. We love through the force of attraction or affection, great compassion. And now today, we'll begin in the chapter on the extraordinary attitude, or wholehearted resolve. So that's going to be on page 310. I'm sorry, that's not true. That's going to be on page 47. And it is cultivation of wholehearted resolve. And in the Tibetan, it's 310, but it actually begins, there's one line of it on 309 as well.
What sombal Hassan so what Katul da Kwa Manda Jiro Janji Saji Jidimudu.
Okay, Saji. Okay.
Saji Saji non Tambu Theater Shambata Tambu Leonore.
Okay. So in this section on the wholehearted resolve, when we look at the commentary by Jayan Sheba, there are 4 categories or 4 points that Lama Tsongkhapa makes here.
Da Hassan la Saji Jignan Tambu Theater Shambata Hiji, the Tara Shambata Hiji Gumbi, the Tara Shambata Hiji Gumbi Ta, Shambata Hiji Gumbi Shugudila, Tala, Nejama. And Dala Duji, Yidun Yu, Shenjen de Dane, de Dar de Pomba, Dan, Dungaj Nanas, de Daje, de Wadan, Trebadan, Dungel Tawa, Shanyanto, Senshin, the Da Ju, Kurchewala, Tana, Sidan, Tana. Sidanji Jean was Shaws. Last of Jinan Tambuta, Jinan Tambudo, the Songdua Jeremy Marba, the Shambat and Hijigumbitas, Shambat and Hijil Hasan Ju Marba, Shambat and Hijil de Hasan Juroa, Shambat and Hijigumbitar, Shambat and Hijigumbitar Lasan, that Jemas.
The Yiptu Wong Garishene. Then this Sabola, Gangisne, the NGK, the Saboyomari, then the Yiptu Wong, the Yiptu Wong is Shingy, you know, the Garshene, the Yiptu Wong sentient.
Hasan Gumban, the Shambatan, Hijigumbi, Tarch, Shambat and Hiji de Hasan Juroa,
Lessa,
the Gumbita, Jemas, Tanyang than Jemarba,
Lessa,
Dala Duji, Yidun once.
yeah.
Shenjen Galo Rangi Mayan Bagun Sadu, Shenjen Tanji Rangi Rangla Yidun, Duba Tungu,
Okay.
Mayamba, Mad Susu Mal Gabro, Ma Yidun Tungro, Shenjen Tanji Rangi Mayamba Shesadu, Ne Shenjen Tanji Rangla Dojin, Yidun Nabayuares, Yidun Shenjen Dada, the Dares. Yidun Shenjen Tanji in the Wayu Mare, the Pombares, Pombatan, Dungaj Nanas, and the Chi Dung, Guy Dung, Chi Dung, Casagura, what in the Ju Dungaj Dung, Chaban Ju Dung, Nana, the Dajata, the Watan Trebatan, Dungel Tawa, Shanjantos. Shenjen Dada what the dungel duwa duwal tawa chigin samba yimbare. Shanyan do senshin sal dangures. Senshin. Nida du kuchewa las. Kuchewa. Senshin tanchi duwalungo ba dagisha. Dungen da jawa dagisha nyabe kuchewa. Kuche lasang se wejiro bada. Kuchewa la. Ne lo jima jinyi ma ju ne ci yin chi gi ne kanu jin zhang wu res. Ta na ci zang ji jang lo zhang wa xiao wu so de la sang ji nang dang bu de.
Sik Jang Lo Jong. Okay, the mind.
What the sing ta ji de wa de ma da ge sha de nga de be nga su kanu no gro wa de ku lo de ji me na wa de ci yin chun de ne lo zhang xie wu res da. Zhang wa xiao wu so de ba la sang ji nang dang bu de.
Sam Shing Dedog True Georgia Tana Tsitsan. The Tama Yan that's Tapar. Oh, okay. The Semchen Nyanin Le Depa. The Tama. Dida Jitar Dewa Dang Jepa Dang Dungyal Le. The Tapar Janyam Du Sen Ching. The Tapar. The Deda Drue Jor. The Semchen Tamche Tarpa?
Ma shi den yong ge shamba.
Lesso.
Ji shamba go de wa da den na ba lo ma
Lesso.
de wa da den na ba de yo.
Lesso.
Ji go so de ga de den na ba de yo wa.
Lesso.
La sang se ge to de zang de ma de wa da de ba da ge sha de ga de wa da ge sha nya be ku chi san tang wo res. Du ku che wa la ta na ci zang ji jang lu zhong wa wo.
Okay.
What about the ji nang dang bu de.
Okay. Okay, so this is the first category among the four, the cultivation of the wholehearted resolve. At the conclusion of meditating on love and compassion, think, alas, these dear living beings for whom I feel affection are deprived of happiness and tormented by suffering. How can I provide them happiness and free them from suffering? Thinking in this way, train your mind in at least this thought in order to take on the responsibility to liberate living beings. So this is the first category. It says, it says, at the conclusion of meditating on love and compassion. So love is the idea of wishing that sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Compassion is wishing that sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. This wholehearted resolve is taking on the responsibility of bringing happiness and freeing them from suffering. So here, at the conclusion of meditating on love and compassion, think, alas, these dear living beings for whom I feel affection. So here, where it says where it refers to the sentient beings, it refers to them with the word that's used when we, just as a translator's note, when we explain attachment, there has to be a desirous in order for there to be attachment. There has to be a desirous thing or something that's attractive, sometimes it's translated as. That's what's the word in Tibetan next to sentient beings. So sentient beings who are desirous to you. And I asked Rinpoche about that. And he said that when you meditate over and over and over again on all sentient beings being our mothers, then this thought of them becoming dear to you, and that's why the word dear is being used to translate it, occurs. So they become desirous. They become a desirous object. That's really the most literal way to translate it that I've seen when the Nagarjuna text is translated. Or attractive. So the sentient beings all become attractive to you because of this meditation on them as your mother and recognizing their kindness, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness. So the word that's next to sentient beings that we're using, dear here, is quite a long word in the Tibetan, and it means that you find you are attracted to these beings in a way that you find the opposite, again, desirous. So anyway, I'm sorry if I prolonged that. So then this thought of how can I provide them with happiness and free them from suffering. So we recognize sentient beings as our mother, remembering their kindness and wishing to repay their kindness. They then become dear. They become attractive to us. Then we wish that they have happiness, wish that they're free from suffering, and then recognize that we then will take it on ourselves to do it. So this wholehearted resolve is where we then say to ourselves, I will take this task on to free them from suffering, to bring them to a state of happiness. So this is the first point that's made. So when we see these sentient beings experiencing the suffering, the suffering of change, the pervasive compounded suffering, sentient beings experiencing the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, we wish to free them from that, and we then take on ourselves that responsibility to liberate them, because that's how we will be able to free them from suffering and bring them to a state of happiness, is by the responsibility to liberate living beings. So that word liberation obviously ultimately means to liberation itself, but liberating them from what? From a state of unhappiness and from a state of suffering. So that's what's meant here in this word for liberate living beings. The Rinpoche, the Yanjer, the Tama, the Semchen Tamche, the Tarpa, Sanlo Dangdu.
다 간데 라산 때 말বে 다 간데 시제 단지 도와도 된다냐 봐 샤모 말বে 시제 단지 동아도 되느냐 봐 히지로
Lessa.
라산들 샤마산 라산당 히지 라산 이마도 산당
Lessa.
도와도 되면 다기 샤냐 봐 샤마 라산
Lessa.
동아도 저 다기 샤냐 봐 히지 라산
Lessa.
이산당 도와 다 된다 산당도 라산은 히지를 잡아가도 무슨 뭐지 그와이 되지
Lessa.
다시 뭐 도저지나 하선의 희지를 뭐지를 뭐지 하선의 희지 뭐지 하선이는 희지면 맞아 줘서나 샤발 하선 주지 너와도 내가 다기샤냐베 샤발 하선데 하선이 희지 마이 희지이나 하선이면 맞아 줘서나 네 희지 동부지도 희지 전부도 말배 what he Hasan Mais.
Okay, Tambo.
Nika Imba and then he
Hasan Ninji.
the Badakashanya, the what doing the Trawadakashanya be his Jan Digro.
Okay. Then a Mayimba Leila. Nika Mayimbi Mu.
What in the Santana, what it is. Collega little charm to that.
Then Nika Mayimbi Mu, the Charan La. Okay, anything.
Sheba Mayimba Gangajan.
Sheba Mayimba. Yabudu. Sheba Mayimba.
Sheba Jan and you would.
Okay. Then the Semchen Tamche Tarpa, the Tarpa tree, they laksan the Mingare. Nyanin le depa, Shanchu.
Hasan de la Page Son Marbe. And
the Shanchu Paksam.
Dundulongo Dagisha, Tabalongo Dagisha, Sanji Salongo Dagisha, Hasan Fun Marbe.
Ale. Oh, Selvadu, the Yabudu.
Tumun Lasan, Didon Tumun Lasan, Chimbi Lasan, Sonja Chusa Marbe.
Lesso. Jipu Sun Lasan, Yabudu. Okay, so I was asking Rinpoche a lot of questions about this. Is this extraordinary attitude specifically focused at bringing them to liberation, or are there subcategories, etc.? So there's actually quite a bit of explanation. So the extraordinary attitude, there are extraordinary attitudes connected to to love through the force of attraction, and through great compassion, as well as liberation according to the beings of three capacities. So I'll explain this one by one. So the idea of taking on oneself the task of bringing sentient beings to happiness and the causes of happiness becomes the extraordinary attitude, love of it with an extraordinary attitude, or a wholehearted love with wholehearted resolve. Taking on the responsibility to free sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering becomes compassion, wholehearted resolve. And when we look at liberation, there's a different type of liberation according to the three capacities, and it's just nominally designated as such for the small scope. But taking on yourself the responsibility of bringing sentient beings to the higher realms of cyclic existence is an extraordinary attitude of the small scope. Bringing sentient beings to a state of taking on oneself the responsibility of taking sentient beings to liberation would be a medium scope extraordinary attitude. And a great scope extraordinary attitude would be taking on oneself the responsibility of bringing sentient beings to the Buddha grounds. So this is how we would divide all of that up. So there are quite a few different kinds of extraordinary attitude or wholehearted resolve. So there is wholehearted resolve when one is thinking, I will take on myself the responsibility of bringing sentient beings to a state of happiness and its causes. I will take on myself the responsibility of freeing them from suffering and its causes. So that's love and then compassion, and then whichever among those three previously explained scopes. So liberate here, this word that's being used, could have multiple meanings, because according to the small scope, liberation is the higher realm. According to the medium scope, liberation is nirvana. According to the great scope, liberation is Buddhahood. So if we were to compare how many permutations are there between compassion and the extraordinary attitude or wholehearted resolve, how many permutations or possibilities are there between love and the wholehearted resolve? So if we just look at the first example of great compassion, we can say that there are 4 permutations. Because if it is an extraordinary attitude, it is not necessarily great compassion. If you say posit that which is an extraordinary attitude, but not great compassion, you would say the thought that I will take on myself the task of bringing sentient beings to a state of happiness and the causes of happiness. This is the extraordinary attitude because it's an extraordinary attitude of love, but it's not compassion, great compassion, because it's love. It's the love through the force of attraction. Extraordinary attitude, which is love through the force of attraction, which isn't great compassion. It's a cause of it, but it's not. So that's the first permutation. Second permutation is, if it is great compassion, it is not necessarily the extraordinary attitude. So if you were to say, posit that which is great compassion, but not great compassion that is the wholehearted resolve or extraordinary attitude, you would say the first stage, the first level of great compassion that occurs, that wholehearted resolve isn't necessarily combined with it, but the great compassion is present. There is an arisal of that realization. So this is the second permutation. The third permutation deals with something which is both. Something which is both great compassion and wholehearted resolve is, I will take upon myself the task of freeing sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering. This is great compassion and a wholehearted resolve. So this is the common locus between the two. This is that third permutation. And fourth permutation, you could say, anything that isn't consciousness would be, so anything that isn't a consciousness or a state of consciousness, like a car, a house, would be mutually exclusive with either of those two. There's not a common. So what something which is neither means is a subject which has no common locus with either of the two subjects that are being compared. So that's how you come up with 4. permutations. So there's something which is extraordinary attitude that's not great compassion. There's something that's great compassion that's not extraordinary attitude. There's something that is both, and then there's something that is neither. So that's the 4 permutations. The mushi, the kanga laksang.
오다 니바드는 마대용 니바드는 어디 하선을 도주에서 도주 자지베 도바주 번데 진래 주의告诉야 중세 소면 장 데담반에 도와다 트나 냐바다 동안데 트나 냐베 희지 무슈기 신전다지 다기 팬드 두보 냐베 삼반데 뇌비 냐바다 희지 제구베 네, 제 그거 땜비 싫어서 어디 니바들에 어디 라산 도주데 네 마셰 된된 전수 거수 대지 시월스 된된 마셰 된된 전수 네 된된 말인데 된된 주 전수 거수 이로 마셰 된된 전수 거수에 제 대시월스 거수 중세 쇼면장 스테조 거세 대 라산도 중요하레스 안에 시제다지라가 많이다 안에 마게 되는 가로라고 저게 이냐베 라산도 여지로다 만나서는 메간체야 칼라면 칼라체야 어떤 마일레가 랑기체야 어떤 라산 전수인지로다 전수의告诉요 중세 쇼면장 데담반에 도와다 트나냐바다 라상기 샴바다 라상은 희지데 라상기 샴바데 도와다 트나냐베 네 샴바장은 디그 말레스 도와다 트바다기 샤오냐베 라상도 그레스 동안도 트나냐베 희지장진 디그 말레스 동안도 도와다기 샤오냐베 상로도 그레스 동안도 테나냐베 희지 무추기스 세젠라 다기 팬드 두보냐베 도와다데 다기샤 동안도 다기샤냐베 상로도 그거레스다 냐베 삼반데 뉘비 샤바드 희지 주구 고버르 댐비셔로스 워드니 니바레
Rinpoche, then did Jinzu Laksang Yure Jinzu Laksang Me Lak Kalen Gari Kalen
수수 마시바 진템바 말바
Lesso
아마 가딘시브로
Lesso
아마 가딘시브 아마 텔렌즈로 아마 나서 메간지야
Lesso
사면 클라트야
Lesso
마글레가 랑기지야
Lesso
전속을 하선인지로 된잡은 말베든
Jinzu Laksang Yine Marshi Jinden Jinzu did Jinzu Dakpar Laksang Yurbe Dakpar
진수 라선 도어든 노데
they Kalen
마팅 가로랑 저기 있는 라선래들보다
they
마일레가 가로랑 제선 라선으로 라선
Okay. So number 2 is a part where doubt, Lama Tsongkhapa brings up any doubts or a point of doubt. Lama Tsongkhapa brings up a point of doubt. Hold on one sec. Even though this thought was described in the context of the practice of repaying your mother's kindness, here it indicates that it is insufficient to have the compassion and love which merely think how nice it would be if they had happiness and were free from suffering. For the thought that assumes responsibility shows that you must develop the compassion and love which have the power to induce the resolve, I will provide happiness and benefit to all living beings. So here, it's not sufficient to just have this idea of how nice it would be, if they had happiness in the causes. And the point that Lama Tsongkhapa is making is it's the same kind of action step which is discussed in the 3rd point of the 7-point cause and effect. So you begin to develop this wholehearted resolve in that 3rd. You have the development of a wholehearted resolve once the realization of the 3rd point is made. And the way that occurs is by recognizing that all sentient beings are your mothers, and then remembering their kindness. This, it says, induces the resolve to wish to repay their kindness. Meditating on the love and compassion induces the resolve to want to actively take it upon yourself to bring them to happiness and free them from suffering. So just the thought isn't sufficient. The action step is required, just as it is pointed out in the third point of the 7-point cause and effect, where an action step takes place in terms of your mothers, that you've recognized all beings are. So then in that step, you've arrived at the wish to, you've arrived at this wholehearted resolve in terms of sentient beings who are your mothers. So it's saying that even this thought was described in the context of the practice of repaying your kindness. So even the thought of taking on that responsibility and not just having it be a wish is mentioned in point 3. So it's saying that, you know, just having the thought of love and compassion isn't enough. You can see in point 3 of the 7-point cause and effect, before you get to love and compassion, that there's this wholehearted resolve to repay the kindness of the mother. So that's point number 2. So the extraordinary attitude, when we look at repaying our mother's kindness, an action step, we would taking on work, not letting our mother do some sort of work, taking the work on and doing it ourselves so she doesn't have to. Taking our mother to the hospital when she needs to go to the hospital, giving our mother food if she needs food, or you know, any drinks or whatever she needs. So this is the actual how we would repay kindness. So that's what is meant here, that just merely the thought of I'm repaying kindness isn't sufficient. One has to say, I will, in that point, actively take on the task of and the responsibility of repaying that kindness. As a translator's note, obviously as the points increase, you realize your limitations, et cetera, and the scope broadens. But within that third step, there's a naivety that says, I want to repay all my mothers. And then there's a building up of the courage to get to the point where you know what that means and then can free them all from suffering. So if you look at it in terms of the build-up, obviously wholehearted resolve isn't the same at the point in point 3 as it would be in point 5, because there's not great compassion yet at point 3, and there's not love through the force of attraction yet at point 3. It's a cause of those things. So just as another note, there's a lot of debate about this. So, Geshe Rinpoche.
Somba tada jang sa tanre, tada jang tunjungu tong la meje se donima somba de ngore. Ane nheje lhasan doba joba re sin jang jibe. Nheje lhasan la nheje lhasan de shaban lhasan ni ro. Nheje lhasan do jue je doba jo no se da.
Nipa?
Somba tada jang tunjungu tong la meje se donima somba de ngore. Jang jibe de saje somba de ngore.
Okay. Did seek
Tada jang, tunju ngon zang la mei jes, tunje la subi, shuelong tangje do, tenpa she ne, yuden do jang na, po chewa yinte, goren baba les long dang wudwa. Goren baba, waten ma wate, sombi kondre, somba. Goren baba le, nheje dingen zin la do jang rons, nheje dingen zin la do jang rong. Shuelong tangje do rong de, tu tangje do, sentient tangje la gomba sha de, she son las, wat teba tu le temen ro.
Did gom du tang gom mayimbi du NGK?
다 간다 해주 공들인데 이제 공자 뜻을 줘로. 또 뜻을 제가 말 가두인 해주 산당
Okay, okay.
어디.
Gaiduyina, Nji Sanladang. Then the Sumba Jayan Sheba, the Laksan Dang, the Garshini, the Drawa Gare.
해주 라상 도와줘.
Dopa Jupa, then Garshini, the Dopa, the Drawa Gare.
해주 라상 도와줘로 도와 제르면서 도와줘 누구스다.
Okay.
해주 라상을 도와줘. 다다장 튼중 원장라 메제스. 다 라상 공스간데 네 냐바는 자는 공부 어때 장바 임바를 산 tren도 거지로. 어때서 말다서 튀 가두인 산당 그래서.
Less.
어때 송대래.
The Nipa Jayan Sheba Mingare.
니바 들어 도주.
Doju. Draw. Drapudu.
히즈로 다
Nipa
이게 라상을 도주로.
Doju.
디 도주 당사. 도주로 도와줘 봐.
Then they Sumba? Dopa Jupa.
소바 히즈 라상을 도와줘 봐서.
Chipa.
히즈 라상도 샴바 라상 니도다.
Okay, Nipa Ninji Dan Shama Laksan Dopa Jupa. Sumba.
니바 들어와 디 도주에 도주. 담불 라상 공부 응원해서 담부지 차지. 디 도주 라상 도와줘 봐 니바지.
Lesso.
어때 산 말봐.
Lesso.
다 송바데 랑젠 공두스. 네 라상 도와데.
Okay.
라상 공 랑젠 공두 라상 공구레스.
Lesso.
Okay,
so we'll do. Okay, so the third category then deals with it's doubts also that arise in terms of great compassion and the extraordinary attitude or wholehearted resolve. And here, doubts also, I mean like points that have been made incorrectly or things people have thought that are incorrect. If it's translated very loosely, that's what that means. Whenever I say doubts, it's a very short word in Tibetan, but it kind of means things that come up that people doubt or have trouble with or debate about. Okay, so here we go. It is very effective if you practice this continuously, being mindful of it in all of your physical activities during the period of post-meditation and so on, not just during the meditation session. So the main point of this is not just during the meditation session. So the doubt, you could probably translate it in another way so it would really show it as this point arises by someone. But the point is there were some that think that not just during the meditation session is sufficient. But Kamala Shila points out that it's at all times, continuously, when meditating and when not meditating, that this occurs. So it says, Kamala Shila's second stages of meditation says, cultivate this compassion toward all beings at all times, whether you are in meditative concentration or in the course of any other activities. So here there's a solid point made that this compassion towards all beings, this cultivation, this meditation, familiarization is to be done, is to be carried out while doing all activities, not just specific meditation type activities. So doing anything else other than normal sitting practice, you should also be generating and thinking of compassion. Digsung Rinpoche.
어제다 담불 하상 공부응원서 담부지 니바 디 도주서지 송바 랑젠 공두 하상 공구래서데 송바 딘사레 랑젠 공두서지
랑젠 공두
히제다 자주선 제다 공두 하상 공구래스 다 제바들 준도 공부서야 된서 준도 네 준도 하상 공구래스 네 고릴레 알레 어디다
Sumba
콩레인사데
did send a gomen
헤제 땡한지라 도장롱 헤제 공부 땡한지라 도장롱 쇼랑 타제도 ronte sholan tanje do nyeje gongu res tu tanje do senje la gomba shade she son las ta nyeje chamba tande mena ganjo tanje raus nyeje de wade example ma to jenda galo shanchu ge san de jaba to ga chama jin da bure es de ne nyeje chamba tande mena gongba tanje raus shine gomba da 사동 공부했는다. 네, 어디 가루 공부했나 돈이 공부한다. 그거 더블레스. 타질란 라오스. 어디 봐도 인사래.
Then a Tony Gona, then the Motadang Tony Gon, the Gariana Tony Gon. Drop will do it? Okay. Okay, two chena. So the third point is that it's this should be applied to all other practices as well. Here compassion is just one example. You must do the same when sustaining any meditation. The great then Sendagome Lung Jipa?
Oh, that is Jipa de Leon, Jipa. Sendagome Lung, then my Jipa in the Sendagome Lung. Junto,
the Mambo here.
Junto Goma Sendagome Lung de Redoa.
Okay.
Then my Jipa de Leon. Sendagome to Carendo.
The Sender Gomen.
Ganyan Kendriba.
Sender Gomen.
Sender Gomen, Nalenta Kibaro.
Lan the Kepa. The Becha, Ming, the Desana Tsava. I don't Puignishim, the Sanjike Ming.
Sender Gomen, Ganyan Kibaju, the Indro. Ruben Chenmo, Senda Kume Jans, Senda Kume, Jundu Gongo Satin, Kume Jam. He did not Hassan to Jundu Gongo Mato, Twin Genial Gonate, Nubatan Kalakabashires, Jundu Gongores, to Saint Caresana, and Sanji Shine, Toma Madujens, not to send the Joe Toma Mabanuro. And then Yomo Kayu. 그 랭고바스 센 토마 매바네 녀모비 바샤자네 녀모비 바샤 고디오레스 그 랭고바 러싱오보 조엄네 라스 러싱오보 l'ensemble de saint de l'elhab ne zuto kalikabire스 menu las yeden chu tibi jerujos yeden He the Shamagon be treated Tiba Naji Zanje, no water no to Mares, and now entered that. Tree Tibe Jerunjo, and she rushing to Kawas, rushing to Kai, that the example Jadrova, Kabu King, rushing to Kawa, that did thus Rukabi did that Domajo Roshin. 너무 따부 실라 보고 따비 티바르 장제 루비 나부 샤면에 바다르스 러신도 카부들레네 마도 브랑코아 스위트 티바지 루노데 카부들 나무도 두 말레스 example 나지 마주 생데 저 도마메 바데 너무 바샤 고디오아레 샤바던 제제다 네 돈이도 때스 공부 장제 될는 도 말해스다. 대바르장 로베 네 나모 샤면에 바다라 example 녀모 카유 토마 메바네스 토마 메바는 아주 생들 녀모 바샤 고디오아레스 녀모 카유 토마 메바네 곰비 생주라 샤바던 해질라 소비에 곰바 예 동물에 제양 먼저와 송바따라 임베 준도 중고소스 준도 샤바드 해지 공고르마도 샤바드 해지 레지상 공바사 조데 들는 두고 말을 손에 인사 같이 샤바드 조아
the Sendagoma Becha, the Deepa Shaba Dupa. the Dendel Dopa, the Dopa, then Deepa Shaba Dopa. The Deepa Shaba Sheda Yapudu, the Beche Ming.
전도 고민 장 생지
The Sabudu.
대바샤바데 이나 이 지진의 이나만 하고 이제 돼.
The NGK, the Sender Gomen Beche Ming, the Deepa Shaba, the Dopa. Deepa Shaba Sheda Yapudu, the NGK Ming. Okay, so here it says, so number 4 is all of this. So here compassion is just one example. You must do the same when sustaining any meditation. The great master Chenda Groman states in his praise of confession, the Dasana Tava. Since beginningless time, the tree of the mind has been moistened with the bitter juice of the afflictions, and you are unable to sweeten its taste. How could a drop of the water of good qualities affect it? So here, since beginningless time, we have had ignorance, and here and there, we have done meditations upon emptiness and other positive things, but since it has been contaminated since beginningless time, just a small amount of practice won't allow for transformation. Just how if there was a tree that had a very, very bitter juice, and you couldn't sweeten it with a large amount of sugar, this juice, how could you expect to just put a little bit of water and dilute it into it if you couldn't sweeten it and change the bitterness of it with a large amount of sugar? It would take diluting it with a large amount of water in order to do that. Likewise, we have these afflictions since beginningless time that are very large in nature, and there are an enormous amount of them. So it will take an enormous amount of sustained practice in order for it to be, in order for them to be gotten rid of. So here the bitter juice is, the afflictions are being compared to the bitter juice, and just adding some water, a drop of water is being compared to just meditating once on emptiness or on bodhicitta or on some of these other good practices, and expecting for there to be this transformation. When you've had, since beginningless time, chances since beginningless time, you've had chances to do these things, and nothing has come about. We are in the predicament we're in. So it will take more. Thus he says, for example, that you cannot sweeten the very bitter and large trunk of the tiktak tree by pouring just one drop of sugarcane juice onto it. Similarly, the mind stream which has been infused since beginningless time with the bitter afflictions will not change at all from just a short cultivation of good qualities of love, compassion, and so forth. Therefore, you must sustain your meditation continuously. So this isn't something that you can just do once. You have to do it continuously. And there are 2 points that are being made here in Chandra Groman's. One is that since beginningless time, in other lives, we've tried to do these things. And then also it's talking about now and as well. So it's saying nothing's happened. You've been doing this since beginningless time. And now, if you are trying to do something about it, just doing something once isn't going to be enough. Look at your track record since beginningless time. And that's really what Rinpoche is saying, and it's pretty close as far as translation. I might have strayed a little, but it's really like, look at this track record since beginningless time, and you've tried to add sugar here, and it hasn't sweetened. How can you imagine that just a small effort in this life that you've done so many times before will be enough? Digsong Rinpoche.
어제 다 마시 되는데도 연구자 완전히 라성 그 차지로와 라성 그 차네 다 네 레전드 용어들라 네 제네도 줄로 자주도 줄로 장와 샤벤도 세정고 송 말베 송로와 다 제네도 줄로 장와 차지 다 자주도 줄로 장와 어들레는 말베 사진들 자주도 줄로 장와 자벤도 세정고 송고 나네 다니바들에 제도 되는 다 로즈 사브 그자래 다 상주 되는 줄로 정와스 제도는 상주 세제반의 제도는 양다주 상주도스 대전 세제고데 매바들 니자고도 제도는 상주 세제반의 제도는 제도는 줄로 정와스 양다주 상주도스 상주되는 줄로 정와들면도 모두제 어때 세제반의 제도는 양다주 상주도스 대전 세제 생이 가도들 제도는 줄로 장비 추다 상주되는 줄로 장비 추니래도 다 제도는 줄로 장 가도들 어떤가 좀 산들다 다 상주되는 줄로 장주 가도들
Less so. Okay, so if we look at going back to the outline, we have first training the mind to be intent on others' welfare, and then training the mind to be intent on enlightenment, and then identifying the spirit of enlightenment, the fruit of the training. The definition of the mind that aspires to enlightenment in the Abhisama Alamkara is mind generation, the desire for perfect, complete enlightenment for the benefit of others. So here there are 2 points, the desire for enlightenment and then the benefit of others. There are 2 ideas being here. Hold on here. Yeah, so we went through the section on training the mind to be intent on others' welfare, and now training the mind on enlightenment. Training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. So going to the Abhisama Alamkara, the definition of mind generation, the desire for perfect, complete enlightenment for the benefit of others. So the desire for enlightenment. What is this? The mind to be intent on enlightenment. That's what it. I'm trying to figure out how to translate this cleanly. Here, the point is training the mind to be intent on what the definition of the mind that aspires to enlightenment is in the Abhisama Alamkara. So it's basically training the mind to think like the definition in the Abhisama Alamkara, which is mind generation, the desire for perfect, complete enlightenment for the benefit of others. Digsung Rinpoche, Gomechi.
What the Shanchu Sambas, what the Jensen Tajik Tunshia, Tunda, what the Gunja Woman. Jensen Tajik Tunshebala, Jensen Tajik Tunshebala, and then Jenji, and then Yuji Kantan, Sambatan, Basha San Lokangalo, and then Chitawaji the Machina, Jendu Chitawaji to Marota.
The Yanjusunan, Gongame.
Sanji the Shanchu Sambas, Jendun Shigoro, Jendun, Jengadunda.
Lesser.
Jengadunda Shebala, Duja Jendagi, San Lucarime, Kopasha San Lucarime, Kulchu Karishina, Pentu Yamakangalo Yabu Chen the Mena, two Marota. The Chamber Shanchu, Shanchu. Not Chengu.
Oh, less so. Okay.
Shanchu Daniel, what the Marbe? Senjiban the Jendun, that do Shanchu, what things are.
So one recognizes that with these 2 points that are made, mind generation, the desire for perfect enlightenment for the benefit of others. So one desires this complete enlightenment because one wishes to fulfill the needs of others. So this desire, if one wishes to fulfill the needs of others, Buddhahood is completely necessary. Because without omniscience, it's not possible to know what this sentient being needs, what is good for this sentient being or not good for this sentient being, at what level is this sentient being on, what is this sentient being thinking. In order to have all of those facts, in order to know all of those things, one truly needs to be omniscient. So this desire for complete enlightenment occurs because one recognizes his or her inability to truly help sentient beings in the capacity that one is in. So there's this desire for complete enlightenment, Why? Because for the benefit of others, because one can't truly benefit others without being omniscient, because one won't really know if it's beneficial or not beneficial in anything you do for someone else without omniscience. So this is why. In order to fulfill others' needs, it's necessary to become enlightened. We'll take a short break. Geshe Rinpoche. Page 48, B, training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. Dixon.
Shanchu Tenzin Julu Jangwa Tala Saji Nying Nan Dambu Tenzin Ma Leong Re. Shanchu Tenzin Julu Jangwa Nga Shebi Rinpe De Ne, Zhendun La Shanchu Guba Tong Ne, Tu Tuban Deba Jeba Am, Yin Men Ji, Wen Jang, Tezang Ji Men Shu Pe, Nga Jiang Rui Gosu, Sheba Tar, Kusung Tu, Chile Ji Yun Den, Sambi Gu Ne, Toma Deba, Jebi Sha, Tene Debi Dunbi, Den Sheba Sombe, Yun Den Dada La Hin Taba Ne, Tundu Je De Rangi Tuen La, Najian Tuba Medu Murongwa, Ngaba Zhangwons, what did Tuba Ding Zarba?
So, training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. Once you have been inspired by the aforementioned process and have seen that you need enlightenment for the sake of others' welfare, you develop the wish to attain it. However, this is not enough. First, increase your faith as much as possible by contemplating the good qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities as previously explained in the section on going for refuge. Then, as it is taught that faith is the basis of aspiration, develop the desire to attain those good qualities from the depths of your heart and induce a certainty that it is absolutely necessary to attain omniscience even for your own welfare.
What that Shanchu Tenzin Julu Jangwa, what did Shanchu Tenzin Julu Jangwa, Nying Nan Dambu Tere, Nga Shebi Rinpe De Ne, Zhendun La Shanchu Guba Tong Nes.
There's two categories is the first.
Nying Nan Dambu Wa Den Le Wang Re. Nga Shebi Rinpe, Zhendun La Shanchu Samba Zu Zhendun She Woro, Ta Zhendun Sheba La Duji Kang Da Samba Dan Bala Nye Da, Ne Kul Chu De Gaten Pen Tu Yeme Ka Ma Chen Na, Shanchu Na Chen Me Na, Ne Zhendun Yaba She Tu Me Yin Jiro Ta. Shanchu Guba Tong Ne, Te Tuban Deba Jeba Yin Me Je Wen Jang, Te Zang Ji Me Shu Pe, Nga Jiang Rui Go Su, Sheba Tar, Ne Sang Ji Ji Gui Yun Den, Tu Ji Yun Den, Chile Ji Yun Den, Ne Sambi Gu Ne, Tu Ta Ba Song Tu, Ne Tuma Deba Pe Wa Sha Shi, Ne Debin Dunbi, Den Shebe, Song Pe Yun Den Dada, Ni Taba Ne, Ngaba Zhangwons, What Deba Du What De Dambu Ding Sarba.
Rinpoche, the Chenrezig Kam Dang Tsampa, the Donagare, go get me Pachi, Kam Tsampa.
Da Gang Deba Na Dada Keba Juba, you know, could never met Dangro. Never take a Nasa Kari Me, Nasa Ju Kari Me, Kulum Hen Gat in the Pengu Me, Dada get the Shema Angel, Dada. Then what did then Dada go there, never the Hen and the could do get Tane, Doyungro. Then I just Sanji get Yang Duen Shedan, and then Yendu she do Jet de la Carpengu, Makukan Karime, Ri Karime, Kol Kar Chu Karshina, 펜투에 챔비 나신 고거스 나신 상주 고거스
The calm, sacha kabya, calm.
칸스나 데 리마르리 되자 칸 되자 가지 오브노비요레 가지 오브투비요레 가지 센상비요레 되자 칸 담다로
And then sampa? Sanlodang, sampa.
Samba.
Okay, gonga mevichi. Okay, so Rinpoche reread it. Once you have been inspired by the aforementioned process and have seen that you need enlightenment for the sake of others' welfare, you wish to attainment. So you need to become enlightenment for the sake of others' welfare because you don't have all of the qualities that are necessary in order to truly help others. You aren't able to say what is the state of mind that this person is in, what is the makeup of this person, and what are their affinities, and what are their strengths and weaknesses internally, and so forth. And in order to truly help someone, you need to know all of those things, and it requires a state of omniscience to be able to know. So if a doctor, for instance, sees a patient, the doctor looks and uses many tools and says, okay, you have this disease, this is the cause of that disease, and then this is the medicine that you prescribe in order to fix that disease, etc. But without that information and without that knowledge, then it's not possible for someone to cure someone's ailment. Likewise, the Buddha has all of these qualities of body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities that allow him or her to truly aid other beings because he or she will know the state of mind and the mannerisms and inner thoughts of all sentient beings. This is the point of you need to attain enlightenment for the sake of others' welfare. So you recognize that need, you develop the wish to attain it. So by noticing that it's needed, then that makes you want to have it. So it says, however, this is not enough. First, increase your faith as much as possible by contemplating the good qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and as previously explained in the section of Going for Refuge. Then, as it is taught that faith is the basis of aspiration, develop the desire to attain those qualities from the depths of your heart and induce a certainty that is absolutely necessary to attain omniscience, even for your own welfare. This reinforces that idea that I wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And then by meditating on what those qualities are that the Buddha has that you need, this then increases your kind of inspiration in order to gain it. You become very certain that you need this state of mind to occur, the state of mind of omniscience to occur, in order to fulfill your goals. And it says not only others but your own welfare. To attain omniscience even for your own welfare, because then you no longer have any obscurations whatsoever. So you are then omniscient. So that's not only for others, but then for your own welfare, there's no longer any hindrances. Digsung Rinpoche, there's no imperfections left.
What the Swaji Yuen to San Tangores, Swaji Yuen Carriers and a Gui Yuen, Sansan Sonju Tani Dan, Pages on Piju Tibi, Gui Yuen, Songi Yuen, Sonji need to Jena, Tomani the Susukos, Sanji Son de Gato, Ne Sanji Peitul Tseji Sumbaina, what the co Tatu like Gatul Konduare. 네, 로아 수수수수 계도를 건너고서 소지 송들 네바데요서 소지 니도 죄나야 도마니도 수수고 소지게 매 계도를 지지 송바이나 신전 참아 수수수 게도 거는 그래서 고야가 네바요 그래서 송기면 돼 송지 니도 줘나야 도만이도 소소고스 다 토지에 돼 네 나체 말베 제다 재미 나체다 제해바 재미 나체 그거가 되나 그것도 더더 많이 되는 거보다 그것도 내가 재미 나체들 제해바 재미 나체 더더 내가 재미 나체들 제다 또 나체스 what is my touch what je na chen bi yuen de je zi yuen de ne sa ji ge tu ju lo zo ya xue de tu ju sa ji tu ju lo ro zi yuen de tu ju de je dan chile ju de ma lo chile ju de de nga so na khal ni ma sha so na chu da ma cha ma ne da yu zo ni sha ge du da chu de da ma yue na 저는 다유존에 상우도 저 담아면 상우도 저는 산지 지hel로 많이 줘봐라 두자랑 거네 산지를 대바도 봐이나 지헬로 좀 그래서 저 담아는 다유존에 시한다 그래서 저녀도 옛날 샤토 말 어떤다 보이서 틀려줘야 돼서
Selbdu.
야
Ngede lago rimsha in Mambalasa. Okay, so it says, however, this is not enough. First, you increase your faith as much as possible by contemplating the good qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. So faith is built by thinking about these qualities over and over. Faith isn't something that just occurs for no reason. Faith comes about through analysis, through recognizing that the object of your future faith is worthy of that faith. So you learn that by familiarizing yourself with that object of observation. So here, it's the Buddha. So the Buddha's excellent qualities of body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. So this is faith. Faith is something that's built. So we begin with the Buddha's body. So the Buddha's body has the 32 major marks and the 80 minor marks. This is what are the qualities of the Buddha's body, these special marks, enlightened marks. The Buddha's speech, the quality of the speech is that if all the sentient beings in the world were to ask simultaneously the Buddha a question, he or she could utter one response, and their questions would all be answered in a language that they understand, meaning that when they hear the answer, they would hear it in their own individual language, whether it was Tibetan or English or Chinese, it didn't matter. So every sentient being in their own languages could all ask a question. Buddha utters one response, and it answers everyone's question in their own language. So this is the excellent quality of the Buddha's speech. The excellent quality of the Buddha's mind is that the Buddha is able to simultaneously understand reality and diversity. So simultaneously comprehend conventional truth and ultimate truth. So the Buddha has this ability to do that, and the Buddha has omniscience, so all-knowing state of mind, which again, the special quality of that all-knowing is that it knows those two truths simultaneously. So the Buddha has this compassion. There are two parts of the mind: the compassion that wishes to work for others' needs, and the understanding of reality and diversity, of ultimate and conventional truth. So this is the excellent quality of the Buddha's mind. And then the excellent quality of the Buddha's enlightened activities are that if one has faith, then the Buddha's enlightened activities will bless them. And it's said it's comparative. It could be compared to a moon that reflects off of a water surface. If there's a water surface there, then the picture of the moon can be seen all over all over the world. Wherever the moon is out and there's a body of water, that moon will reflect in it. the water isn't present, there's no reflection of the moon. Likewise, faith is like the condition of a reflector in the case of the moon that allows for the Buddha's enlightened activities to bless us. So our faith serves as that cooperative condition for the Buddha's giving us this blessing. This is how the enlightened activities work, and it's said that by meditating over and over again about these qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, one will wish to have them as well. And because it's possible, then this inspires you to do so. So that's give the ultimate conventional free individual. Khensur Rinpoche. Biu the Danzi Sanji Sanjay Biu te Biu Sanjay te. Okay. Chupabu. Okay, then.
Then two called Sanjay Yaji could garden, could dance.
So these marks are also inspirational, not only for. Oh, I see. So these marks also can inspire animals who wouldn't necessarily communicate, but could see these magnificent marks. And there's a story of previous times when the Buddha was around, and that a monkey went to the Buddha and made an offering of honey, and then began to dance around in joy because of the sight of the Buddha's excellent qualities. Then the Biyu Sanjay the Sunchu Sani the Tun Tudue Papa me Yengua my
Sanjay could view within a manner that you don't Kanga to me to the night in Agumaro. Could you don't want to
So I was asking Rinpoche, then can a monkey see these marks? Because I thought that it was Arya Bodhisattvas. It's a long story, but I just asked that question, and he said what the monkey saw, or who the monkey was, we can't say for sure, but he was definitely saw whatever he saw to be attractive. The Yiptuwa, this word again, attractive or desirous, and it made him happy. So. Anyway. So the monkey clearly had previous imprints that made for this interaction.
So
that's the first of the two.
Shanchu the Sanji Jum Mobashadis, and then Shanchu the Sanji Judil Majet, the young Wishaba, Hijil Hassan Mombayo Rota, Jum Moya, Hiji notice, Hiji one Hiji notice, Rani J, and then Rani J, Jeba, Rani J, Jebane, Cheba Chewa, Ishi Shaji, Tinganji. Kazawale, Gori Tambole, Sonsos, what the Sanji Jumamuyana, two Niji Sonyores, Niji, but the Rani Jebane, Chebarchewa, and then Niji the Ranto, Niji Jebayana, Chebachibuores, Chebachibu, but the Ishi Shaji Tinganji Dulu Sondos, Tinganji Dulu Kazaba. So when Kamala like one of Tamil songs, one of Tamil Rendua,
This is number 2 of the second category of training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. Although there are many causes for the development of the spirit of enlightenment, the concentration of the Tathagata's sublime gesture sutra, Tathagata Yana Mudra Samadhi Sutra, cited in the first stages of meditations, Rinpoche said by Kamala Shila, says that it is most special to develop it on your own, overcome by compassion. Okay, Digson.
What the Shanju sent you more what to do in Hiji the rest of the Marble. Takande Shanju sent to Nasu Pashi Shidden or Sajingati Marble. Then Judong, Wota Royita, parents. Pashi Shidden or teaching Sajigo Tatan, Jema Dan Digger. Then Judong, Wota Royita, parents. Dance na, and dance na. Shanju sent the Susu Julchiba Yoris. The Kan Losh and the Rama.
Okay. Rasa.
Then what the Shanju sent Susu Julchiba Yoris and I. Dwari Dugal Shanju sent Julchiba Yoris. And then Beijing then Kashiji Son Chatson, most so my brother. Jajibi Shale Shanju sent the Sijan Samal Dwari to get in Joy Yoris. Nyobal Shanju Samba Yoro. Shajaman Buddha, and Senji Jikalam, Nyawal Jene, Shanju Sen Yi Del Jiba Marbe. Yi Del Shanju to Jibares, Nyawaba, Shanju Samba, Shajaman Buddha, Tambo, Yi Del to Jigua. Tenaji Data Tundutan, Matan Hatan, Haman Samagil, Shanju Senjiba Yusade. Then dance. Teaching Senji, then the Rory to go yours.
Lesser.
Nyavi Shanju Senji or yours. Samal yours.
Lesser. Luden Senden. Okay, so when we look at the section on bodhicitta and Panchen Sonandrapa's general meaning of perfection, we find it's divided into 5 categories: base, cause, nature, division, and benefits. This section's explained in that way, and the first category, base, refers to the mental and physical base that will be suitable for the arisal of bodhicitta, the mind that aspires to enlightenment. When we look at the texts, it states in the collected works of Panchen Sonandrapa, we find that the points made are that all sentient beings in any among the 6 realms of cyclic existence can generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So there, even a hell being, a hungry ghost, an animal, a god, a human god, and a demigod, any among those beings in the 6 realms of cyclic existence can develop the mind that aspires to enlightenment. So the first category, basis, we have, which is called Den in Tibetan, we have basis is any being in the 6 realms of cyclic existence.
What you see the Tamanga Julo, what the Sanji Kupun to have Judu Yoris, the God Judu Garisana, and Sijan Samali Ijiba, Ijiba. Ijiba the Le, Chu Tanji Share Nuba Yoris. Nemo the seed of Tamapua Nuba Yoris, Nuba.
So why is it that this is possible? It's possible because all sentient beings possess a mental consciousness. That mental consciousness, therefore, possesses Buddha potential or Buddha nature. So that mental consciousness has the ability to be transformed into an omniscient consciousness. So because of that, because all sentient beings possess a mental consciousness that has the ability to become omniscient, that means that all sentient beings can develop this mind that aspires to enlightenment. All sentient beings want happiness and wish to not be suffering.
도야 토야 요바당 등에도 제야 요바 따레스데 산들 도와도 등에 먼저 받게 따뜻한 것을
So the sign that this occurs is because that the mind itself doesn't want to have suffering. The mind itself wishes for happiness. All these minds do want to be free from suffering and wish to have happiness. And here this is a sign that this idea of wish for emancipation is there because all minds want to have happiness and want to be free from suffering.
What the center what the never can do is na karasa guru senle and yomo bata shi jebata su lulu shede yoris barba lulu shede.
So in the mind, the afflictions and the obstructions to omniscience are the mistaken consciousness part.
Sen no lo chuno dema maruba shebelu te tenzin no marba tenzin de no yo de tenzin jebo le de yomo ba tangil no na kaligalan ya chike.
So we have the ability to get rid of the grasping at true establishment. And the grasping at true establishment is what creates the karma and the afflictions. So if one gets rid of the grasping at true establishment, then the karma and the afflictions that it creates also no longer occur. And this is how that is possible. So this is the basis.
Nene kasagure jumo bosun wardan te tu nan dajenya baji gon sanji bisu da juni menga du gon sanji bisu ni to marbe pajin de wedro da.
So in the Prajnaparamita teachings we find when we have this section on base, then we say how does that base then that has this mind generate bodhicitta? Then we find those two categories we just went over. The 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment passed down from Lord Atisha, and the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice passed down from Master Shantideva.
What do you know? What the Taiwa Senji Jedo to Jala Meji, Rango Trusu Chebi, the bottom Soma Dembe, Tejan Yugu, Tuji, Nari, Tejan Senji, Seni is, Tela Inakazu, Ni was, Merced and Juseni. Merced and the Carisana, Shanju Semi Nova Matu Kongi, Shanju Saint Dele, Merced Lagres, Shanju Semi Nova Tutadu, Shanju Saint Galajusen, Merced Jusen. Yeah.
So the definition of the great vehicle mind generation is a consciousness which is the entrance to the great vehicle arisen in association with a wish which is its own aid that aims at the perfect enlightenment for the sake of others. So there are two divisions of this mind that aspires to enlightenment. There is the aspirational mind that aspires to enlightenment and the engaged mind that aspires to enlightenment. These are the two categories.
What is your choosing Penacadulu? What the Kazonga to Jushy Masma? Jushy is one. Teji Yugo.
The Nandur Lajang, the Shugu Jung Ayure, the Panyun Ju, the Pension, the Nandur Lajang, the Shugu Jung.
The Lamrim Gulu,
the Chutsugatsure. Okay.
Chutsugatas in the Dua. Tendang, Jutang, Montan Raye, Iwadro, Iwadil, that in the patient is not less, Sanji Jatsu Momdua. I said, you say,
That's so.
Then this Hassan Jugunio Mombajadua. And the pen European. Send you the Naba Chutabu, Mazan Lundalan and Jayuko, Richard Ritama of Juna, Shanshu Sensi or Radenzons, Shuju London Woodle, Pen Catulio.
So we find in the general meaning of perfection, we find these 5 divisions of base, cause, nature, division, and benefits. And there are many different ways that we can divide this bodhicitta. We divide it into aspiring and engaged. So there's many ways. This particular text divides it into 5. And then when we previously we went over the benefits in the pension text, we found that there were the 10 benefits. And what I was speaking with Rinpoche about, he says in the beginning of the Lamrim, we find these benefits also. We find it in this text, and then also in the liberation in the palm of your hands. There's in English, there's like 15 pages on these 10 benefits. If you want to look it up just as an aside, it's what we were just speaking about. But Rinpoche is using the Panchen Lama text. So when we look at the causes of it, we find in the Lamrim there's an enormous amount of information about the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment and equalizing and exchanging self with others. The shitun de techen du ri depiju, gewe shenyan yi zimbiju. Decent. Okay. So we'll conclude there, and so we have many different ways of dividing. Rinpoche said there's many different ways of dividing up these different points and topics. And I was just talking, and we look at the causes in the general meaning of perfection. We have 4 totally different causes that are pointed out that would then implicitly would have in it the things that we're talking about now. But you find 4 different points talking about being under the influence of love and compassion, having a spiritual friend. These are all pointed out in that. So just encourage everyone to find all that information. Diksun. So we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Sheda Sobuldu. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Yatso. May you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tujiram Jiguti Shapi Denona. Everyone listened well, Rinpoche said. Thank you. Thank you.